Do we have to be in the moment every hour, every minute, every second of the day? Of course not. We couldn't achieve that even if we wanted to. If we could do that, for example, we wouldn't be able to analyze and learn lessons from the past or make plans for the future. Also, sometimes we need to be in autopilot mode, where we are not in the moment, in order to accomplish some of our daily tasks quickly. Autopilot mode is a mode where we act by rote with our habits, and we are usually not in the moment. Too much autopilot mode is harmful. I have explained the details of this in my previous videos, but sometimes it is necessary. Otherwise, we would waste time in our daily routine as if we were doing it for the first time every time. So both are necessary in moderation and sometimes necessary. However, when we look at it in general today, we see that in the fast pace of life, most of us are on autopilot for almost all of the day. This leads to decreased attention and awareness and stress-related problems. It is a good skill to be in the moment, maybe not all the time, but at certain times of the day. It strengthens your attention and resilience skills. It calms you, it rests you, and it strengthens your ability to focus. And this is proven by scientific studies published in peer-reviewed journals. So are we really able to stay in the moment? If you go and say, "I'm literally going to perceive this," then of course it's not really possible to stay in the moment, because even when you realize that you are in the moment, that moment has already passed. So of course it's not possible to stay in that exact second, even for a split second. But what I mean by staying in the moment here is this. It's about my perception of what's happening right here, right now, and being able to accept the feelings, thoughts, and sensations that this perception creates in me without judgment, with compassion. Now, when I say acceptance here, it can also be misunderstood. For example, what? Should we accept it and not make any effort? Should we give up to change things? Should we accept it and swim in the sea of sorrow? Again, what is meant by acceptance here is not to give up and stop striving for a better life, or to give in to certain emotions, to be tossed around in them, or to endure something, but to accept, to allow that emotion to be there more. Suppressing or avoiding emotions can sometimes be really useful. For example, when I come home in the evening after a stressful day, it can be really good to distract myself by watching something, or after a confrontational meeting, it can be really good to go for a walk, to distract myself. Or when a foreclosure comes to the house, it can be really good for me to think that yes, this too will pass, it won't always be like this. As long as it is not overdone, this is a coping strategy and can be used from time to time. However, if we have made suppression and avoidance a habit, if we mostly suppress or avoid our emotions in every aspect of our lives, in every moment of our lives, if we refuse to face them, there are of course some problems that this brings with it. For one thing, we are always delayed in facing the reality, and perhaps we are unable to take the steps we need to take to change that reality. For example, if a person who has frequent problems with his/her spouse, perhaps experiencing psychological or physiological violence from his/her spouse, if he/she suppresses and ignores the anger and frustration that this creates in him/her every time, after a while he/she will never be able to take that action to change this situation, maybe to get out of this relationship or to take another step in this relationship. Also, when we are constantly suppressing or avoiding emotions, after a while we become alienated and numb to ourselves and our own emotions. We don't really realize what we are feeling. So our behaviors are more like unconscious reactions, not conscious responses, but unconscious reactions. Because somehow repressed emotions don't disappear, they don't go away. They are there. They continue to enter our lives by changing form and differentiating. Sometimes this can be physical or mental illnesses, sometimes it can be, for example, sudden bursts of anger. There can be inappropriate reactions. In other words, somehow we project those suppressed emotions onto others, and when we suppress painful emotions, after a while, we actually become their prisoners. We are not aware of it. We live a life in their thrall, because they are there and they keep reflecting on things. However, we can be their master, not their prisoner. or we can stay with them in peace. Recognizing and accepting what is in the moment actually means being at the same distance to the bitter and the sweet. What do I mean? There are certain stages of being in the moment, so we don't only realize what is in the moment. Let's talk a little bit about these. For example, one of them is when we notice what is happening in the moment, to be able to watch it objectively and calmly, without judgment, without attaching any labels to it, without attaching any labels such as good, bad, horrible, ugly, or without writing disaster scenarios about it. For example, when the house is seized, damn it, the house is seized, they're collecting my things, I'm disgraced, I'm ruined, what a failure I am, what have I achieved in this life? Has it always been like this? Does this always happen to me? My life is over, ruined. What a terrible life I have. It will always be like this from now on. It will be even worse, is not actually being in the moment. The approaches that suggest being in the moment also suggest separating what we realize in the moment from ourselves. So even if these thoughts are going through your mind, yes, you notice them, but you watch them objectively. You don't just drown in their emotional flood. Because you know that thought is not absolute reality, that thoughts are often a distorted perception of reality, not reality, and that the resulting emotions, feelings, sensations, bodily sensations are temporary. Of course, all this is easy to explain, but it takes some effort to apply it. It requires a little bit of knowledge and doing some exercises in a sequential way. Because the more we do certain things, the more we begin to absorb this information and put it into practice. In Zen philosophy, the process of looking at what we notice in this moment, objectively, without judgment, without labeling it as good, bad, or terrible, with a childlike curiosity and a sense of discovery, is called returning to the beginning mind. Again, in Taoist philosophy, this is described with the concept of an unhewn log. I've talked about it before in my Wu Wei video, but to summarize briefly here, why do they call it going back to the unhewn log? Because somehow, from the moment we are born, we are chiseled by our mothers, fathers, friends, the society we live in. And the life we start as that unhewn log. After a while, we cannot perceive what is happening as it is, with the effect of these chiselings. Our prejudices and some of the results of our lived experiences come into play. In order to be able to approach things objectively, in order to be able to approach things really objectively, we need to be able to go back to that initial mind or to the position of the unhewn log. When we can do this, we can protect ourselves no matter how terrible what we realize in the moment is. In fact, no matter how much we talk about it, focusing on what is happening in the moment, noticing it, accepting it without judgment, with compassion, is something that is learned more through experience rather than through telling. Just like riding a bike or swimming, somehow you cannot learn to ride a bike or swim by listening to someone. You have to live that experience. If you want to have this experience, if you want to make a start, I put the link to my video in the comments, which includes a small 6 to 7 minute exercise. I pinned it at the top. After this video, you can experience it by watching it. If psychology and personal development are in your field of interest, you are on the right channel if you want to get to know yourself better and increase your psychological resilience in this challenging world and learn the techniques related to it. We share new content on these topics every week. Please don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you want to be informed about new videos.